Joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Arise News analyst Emmanuel Ifeni. Good morning, Elder Emmanuel Ifeni.
Good morning, Ruben.
Happy Independence Day to you.
Yes, happy Independence Anniversary. Good morning, Rufai.
Action.
The very patriotic Victoria Tundu MQ Abiola.
Good morning. I love my country.
You know I'm not going to confuse you for any other person.
You would never.
You would never.
That's true. That's where you know who is truly there. Not like some people, Mr. Ifeni, you've said it all.
Egba Elder, take note. Yeah, it's a happy day, a day of celebration. So let's start the newspaper review with this day, Nigeria's newspaper of records. Now, the lead story, Queen Elizabeth, Abdulsalami, Jonathan, Lawan, governors salute Nigerians at 60. Organized private sector, others outline strategies for Nigeria's economic recovery. Buhari has addressed the nation this morning. And Ruben, you had a lot to say about that. But we have lost something on our territory, Ruben, you forgot. We've lost part of Bakassi. So the size of Nigeria, the land space is not the same as in 1960.
No, I was quoting the president, 19,760 square meters.
Yes.
What is on Google is 923. So if you deduct it, I want to imagine that the president is right, because it will be scandalous if the president of Nigeria does not know the size of the country that he governs. So if I take note.
Okay.
Well, that's also good.
Yes.
I'm not saying anything of
Yes.
that.
But also on the front page of these day newspapers, celebration like no other. 5 p.m. Nigerian time till 11 p.m. There will be celebration. This day Arise Group on international TV. So everybody should just hook up at that time. In top Nigerians and other international personalities from outside the country will be speaking on Nigeria at 60. Nigeria's gift to the world, music-wise. Tiwa Savage, Burna Boy, self-proclaimed African giant, and Grammy Award nominee. They will all be performing at that time. So this day, Arise Group taking the celebration a notch up. And I'm sure everybody will want to hook up at that time. But let's look at what other newspapers are reporting concerning Nigeria's independence today. Tribune newspaper, October 1 protests. Police tighten security nationwide. Buhari addresses nation at 7 a.m. today. He has addressed the nation. Atiku, Tinubu, Kwande, Lekot chart new path for Nigeria. Federal government says Nigeria's unity remains unshaken. Lagos Council's Independence Day parade. Reposition your government. PDP tells Buhari, Nigeria yet to find its bearing. Afenifere. Now, the Daily Trust newspaper, the lead story, Nigeria has changed beyond recognition. Nigeria has changed, but we can still recognize the one Nigeria that got its independence on October 1, 1960. Despite civil war, we remain one indivisible nation today. So I'm not sure Nigeria has changed beyond recognition. Things may have changed in various sectors, but the country remains that great nation with great promise. In the next 60 years, we should be able to actualize the promise that came with independence in 1961. In 1960, October 1, 1960. Now, the Pilot newspaper, Nigerian Pilot, kudos knocks as prominent Nigerians, friends, groups speak on anniversary. Nigeria will flourish for a long time. Queen Elizabeth II, she is sick unto death at 60, says Cardinal Anthony Okoji. It's been 5 years of divisive, repressive, retrogressive, corrupt administration. says PDP, the opposition party. She derailed, lost focus since first school in 1966. Isiaku Ibrahim, Nigerians giving their perspective on what has been 60 years after independence. Now, the Guardian newspaper, yes, with Nigerian leaders of the past, there on the front page, Nigerians demand restructuring as nation clocks 60. Let's take back Nigeria at 60. That's the editorial of The Guardian. Not a time for lamentation, please. The editor-in-chief's note in The Guardian newspaper. Then, if we look at other newspapers, The Nation newspaper, yes, The Nation newspaper, no thrills in states, Abuja to celebrate Nigeria at 60. Buhari to review parade at Eagle Square today. Of course, coronavirus hold back plan in some other states, including Lagos, where parade has been put off as a result of this of the coronavirus pandemic, which is still very rife in our environment. The Punch newspaper, yes, Afenifere or Haneze fault structure. ACF, that's the Arewa Consultative Forum, demand referendum on one Nigeria. That in itself is some call, because if you're asking for a referendum on one Nigeria, there are others who will be asking for a referendum, whether indeed we should continue to be one Nigeria. But on this occasion of the 60th independence anniversary, we should be celebrating our nationhood and our independence. But if we go back to the Nation newspaper, we must not miss this in the celebration mood. Buhari presents 13.08 trillion 2021 budget Thursday. Yes, it was approved yesterday by the Federal Executive Council. And the highlights of that budget includes oil benchmark at $40 per barrel, 7.89 trillion revenue projection, 4.489 trillion fiscal deficit. That's a huge one. GDP growth pegged at 3%, 1.8 million barrels daily oil production. Yes, the government is working seriously to ensure early submission of the budget to the National Assembly. And according to this report, that will be done a week from today, next Thursday. So it's a good one that this issue of a budget circle is being taken seriously. Now, if we look at the foreign newspaper, before we come back to discuss some of this story, Ruben, Tundu and Rufai, the Daily Mail newspaper. No, let's start with the Daily Telegraph. The Daily Telegraph newspaper. Johnson tells his lockdown critics, there is only one way of doing this. Prime Minister insists the way to beat a second wave of virus is to maintain a tough stance. But not many agree with him, because he's making it clear his determination to stick with a strategy of localized restriction. But those areas that are affected by his restrictions are not happy about it. But another story beneath that story in the front page of the Daily Telegraph. I hope we have the picture there. Number 10, ally warns Prime Minister of draconian approach. That draconian approach will come back to haunt him. And that ally is James Frey, who is saying pushing the English into a civil, that Boris Johnson's action on restriction is pushing the English into civil disobedience to protect their families, and this will end catastrophically badly. That's how he puts it. And he's calling on Boris Johnson to change his coronavirus strategy and focus more on the economic impact of the pandemic. Of course, this argument between saving lives and saving livelihoods continue to rage. But Daily Mail put it in another way. Mr. Boom versus Mr. Doom. Upbeat Bank of England chief says, forget fears and fatalism. Economy is bouncing back. While gloomy Prime Minister warns of second full lockdown if we don't follow rules. I think the argument here is very clear. But if a top chief of the Bank of England and the Halde is saying that in contrast to Boris Johnson's economic lockdown, gloomy economic lockdown picture, that indeed that the economy is recovering. But bad news about the pandemic is crowding out the good news from the economy, and that in itself can be catastrophic. So these are the arguments being put forward, Mr. Doom and Mr. Boom. Mr. Boris Johnson is being regarded as Mr. Doom in this case, while those who believe that the economy is bouncing back, but we just need to play down this issue of the gloomy picture from coronavirus down so that we see the good news and the good picture. Just before we discuss the Washington Post, what is happening in the US, the aftermath of that chaotic debate, GOP fears loss of crucial voters in debate fallout. The foreign newspaper Washington Post. From stance of race, a concern. Allies praise, few scorn, norm-shattering performance of that debate. Now, if we just come back, Ruben, Tundu, and Rufai.
Well, quick comments.
Yes.
Let me start with the UK. Prime Minister Boris Johnson is saying that, look, there's no other way other than for people to respect the new rules. And if they do not, the government will have no option but to impose another lockdown as the United Kingdom faces a likely second wave. And we've seen the figures, the infection rates rising to beyond 7,000 per day. However, for me, the big news is the fact that the picture of his father appeared on the front page of the Daily Mirror, not wearing a mask. He was pictured in a store. And Daily Mirror has this very cheeky headline. So, PM, when is your father going to be fined?
He's going to have to be fined.
Which is to say, well, I mean, if you are insisting on these rules, then in your own household, you have to start with your dad.
And can I also say Jeremy Corbyn went to a dinner party,
yes,
and there were 9 people in the picture. The 10th was a photographer. And that's also flouting the rules. He has to be fined.
He has to be fined.
Violation of the rule of 6. And then in the US, I mean, interesting thing yesterday, we saw President Trump, backtracking on his comments about the Proud Boys. He's now on record as having said, oh, he doesn't know them, and that they should stand down.
And stand by.
No. He's not saying they should stand by anymore.
Okay.
He's saying that they should stand down.
Period.
Even when he says he doesn't know who the Proud Boys are.
But the Proud Boys are already circulating stand down and stand by.
Yes,
that's the ironic part of it. But he needs to quickly disown them so that it doesn't affect
He cannot disown them anymore. Yes. They are using Islam as their hashtag.
But to come to Nigeria,
yes.
I mean, we've said a lot about Independence Day. Just to note that today we share, our national day with other countries, 16 other countries in Africa, including Cameroon, Democratic Republic of Congo, Mauritania, Cote d'Ivoire, and what's his name? Our colleague Shegun Adeniyi has a list of all of these countries in his column today. And he makes an interesting argument that if you look at all the other countries in Africa, including Somalia is also on that list, Gabon is also on that list, that Nigeria will seem to have done much better than those countries, in spite of whatever we may have suffered. And this is not to say that the year 1960 is jinxed, but that at least when Nigerians look around, they can still see that, well, it's not so bad after all.
Ruben,
however,
I will not be part of that kind of celebration.
No, but wait, let me finish.
Can you imagine yourself being in the same league with Somalia?
No, I don't want to misrepresent Shegun Adeniyi.
As part of the celebration.
He went for that and cited the example of Cyprus, which also became independent in 1960 on the same day. And he provided the figures to show that Cyprus has done much better than Nigeria. And if you go to China, today is the National Day of China too. Yeah. The People's Republic of China was established October 1, 1949. Now, if you compare Nigeria with China, or even with Hong Kong, or even Macau, you will see that we have not tried at all. So, but it's important to know that, well, when you look at October 1, from the analysis that Olusegun Adeniyi has done, we can say, well, we compare with others, we haven't done too badly. But the point you made, which I think we should also stress, is that today is a day of mixed feelings for many Nigerians. As we speak, there are groups who had announced sit at home. I think it's IPOP in the eastern part of the country. Whether that sit at home takes place or not, the point they are making is that, look, there are issues with Nigeria and that there is no need to celebrate. Today, a group, a Yoruba group that wants Oduduwa Republic have been threatening for weeks that they will protest today. Another group, Revolution Now, and some civil society organizations have said they will have a million-man march to protest the problems of Nigeria. But of course, the police have warned that if anybody is seen on the street trying to disrupt the process of Independence Day, then of course there will be issues. In other states, in Ogun State, there is curfew. In Lagos State, there isn't going to be any elaborate celebration. But in Ogun and Lagos, the excuse is COVID. Just as in Hong Kong, protests have been discouraged for COVID reasons, even if we know that the Chinese are trying to, on their national day, also impose or effectuate the national security law.
All right, thanks so much for that, Dr. I'll just start from the U.S., and I'll start from what GOP is saying. And they're very correct. The Republican Party is saying that the debate might have affected Trump more because reaching out in that debate, Trump wanted to target the suburban women. But a lot of the things he said have only pushed the suburban women away. Another great example is law and order and, not renouncing the Proud Boys when you have the chance. He deliberately was teasing by asking Chris Wallace,
so give me a name. Give me a name.
What group do you want me to mention? And Joe Biden said the Proud Boys. I said the Proud Boys, and he went ahead and he made that comment, stand by and stand down and stand by.
No, stand back and stand by.
Stand by, yeah. And he made that comment. But this is the same man that we know that David Duke of the KKK has greatly celebrated Donald Trump. And Donald Trump have not said in any way that I dissociate myself from the KKK. Let's not forget, it was the KKK that bombed the church in Birmingham, Alabama in the 60s. The KKK has done a lot against black people. These are white supremacist
Is it just
groups.
that church? Even though 4 girls died, they lynched hundreds of black people.
The KKK, worked under the templates of the Jim Crow laws. And the white suburban women in America, a lot of them sampled yesterday, said, this is not working for us. He can go on Twitter and renounce those comments. Yes, but a lot of people have seen him for who he truly was. What Trump did was he greatly demarketed himself in that debate. To a large extent, I'm not saying I'm going to exonerate Joe Biden, but to a large extent, Joe Biden had some things we call the Zen moments. There were moments he could clearly speak to Americans. A moment like that was when he was talking about COVID, and he said, do you know what it feels like? Looking at the camera, speaking to Americans, coming back home and seeing that one of your family members can't sit on that seat because they've died
at the table
because of COVID.
Yeah.
And you can see moments like that resonated. So Trump is on panic alert. Those swing states are there. Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania. When you check back, even Wisconsin, those seats are there. I know Wisconsin is a state that Democrats think they normally have, but Trump won Wisconsin against Hillary Clinton. In fact, the last person to lose Wisconsin, to show you how Democrats had that state under grab, is Michael Dukakis in '88. But Trump won that Wisconsin. Wisconsin is looking like it's going to tip the way of Democrats. It's just about over 30 days to the elections. Now, we're going to see how that's going to tip in the balance. But the debate didn't do Trump a lot of good.
But make no mistake, his base has also been ramped up.
His base can't deliver him. You see, he had a base in the last election. He still lost the popular vote by 3 million. So his base can't deliver for him. He had a base in the last election. And he lost the popular vote by 3 million.
His performance was not great, but nobody is surprised.
And his base was decimated. His
I
base
wouldn't be
now
so sure.
has been decimated. So moving on to Nigeria, I mean, Dr. Abati, you said it all as regards that article. I don't want to say any further. I don't want to make us feel any sad. But South Korea had a bigger GDP per capita. Nigeria had a bigger GDP per capita than South Korea in 1960. But as of today, we all know the story. It just shows that we can build and build on what we have.
Rufai, I think that's why we should be benchmarking our country.
Oh, yes.
Instead of bringing the likes of Somali, Gabon into the mix.
That's what we should be benchmarking.
On a day like this.
You know,
but there are countries too. And they
are countries too.
Burkina Faso.
And there are countries too.
Also celebrating.
And
you are watching us in all those countries. We also congratulate you on your National Day.
But we should also look at the things that have not made us grow over the years. What did South Korea do to grow? South Korea made use of what they had. They too were a country that was collecting a lot of aid to their country. Before Park, the father of General Park, General Hay, the father of the last president that was disgraced, came out to say that South Korea can change the way they do businesses, and they started building the businesses we call Shaebos today, the Samsungs, the Hyundais, and things like that. They were trading companies too. So when will Nigeria transit from just having trading companies?
We tried to do that too.
To
we
manufacturing.
Talked about the Korean Chaebos.
Yeah, the Chaebos, yeah.
That was what, brought about the Transcorp initiative and all of
Great.
that. But it didn't work.
It didn't work.
So those things that work in other countries, why don't they work here?
That's the question. That's the question
that the president was posing today.
That's the question.
What is it that we are not doing right? And he says it's our collective responsibility to think.
Because when you look at those big economies, Dr. Abati, I think the Japanese too have a group of companies they call I forget the name now. They are companies too that evolve out of the Germans have what they call the Mittelstand. They are small, medium companies that have grown into conglomerates today. Why can't we have a lot of that? Because if we have a lot of that, prosperity will spread across. Another thing too is the case of faults.
Well, we cannot reinvent the wheel.
Yes.
The issues were raised. They were covered by the president. He talked about ethical values.
Yes.
He talked about the decline of institutions, right? He talked about artificially constructed fault lines in Nigeria. He talked about the lack of integrity even within the institutions. The question today is, what do we do? The president says, let us reflect together so that we can rescue our country. We all know what the problems are.
There's a moral deficit here. Ask any entrepreneur who tries to run a business in Nigeria, and you'll answer the question you just posed, that rhetorical question of why can't we do the same? If you try and run a business, half the time you've got to be watching out for what your staff is trying to pilfer.
That's true.
I mean, we have a problem here. We have a moral issue. And we all point fingers. Oh, the president is not doing this. The governors are not doing this. But what about what you are doing?
That's true. And that's why we should really, above other things, look inward. Because I believe it is possible. There are countries that don't even have resources.
At any given time, the buck stops at the table.
There are countries that don't even have resources. I'll give you an example.
But the leader is not one individual.
Everybody has a part to play.
At the level of the leadership, have we provided the kind of leadership that Lee Kuan Yew provided?
Does the country not get the kind of leadership it deserves? Does the country not get the kind of leadership it deserves?
It's just about us. There are countries that don't even have resources that have done it. I'll give you an instance. Ireland. Ireland had nothing. As at the 60s when we had electricity in this country, there were villages that had no electricity in Ireland. What did they do? Open the economy to big businesses, use very good tax bases for these businesses, and today Ireland is making a lot by all the top global tech companies coming to set up in Ireland, and their GDP has grown transformationally. So there are many methods we can approach. It's there for us.
Well,
Happy birthday, Nigeria.
Some of those things that work elsewhere will not work here.
As has been
proved. Our argument. And that's why people have been talking about authenticity in terms of responses, and also an opportunity for creative thinking, for originality. We have all these models. We've tried all those models in this country. They have not worked. The question is, why?
So beyond reflection on this day, how do we move forward? Move forward in terms of reaching the level the Koreans, the Asian tigers have accomplished. I think that should be some of the hard questions we should be asking ourselves as part of the reflection on this day.
Well, thank you very much, Emmanuel Efenim. We'll keep reflecting, but we must work together. We must be optimistic.
you.